Hello and welcome back to another Bad Movie Reviews movie review, hosted by none other than your two favourite extinguishers, Terminators, the bug exterminators. I don't know. I couldn't think of anything.
I just would have gone with superheroes.
Nah, I don't think anything about us is super, except for my crippling depression. But other than that, we are reviewing a film that I guess I have kind of has not necessarily come out of nowhere, but has been getting decent reviews. It's been out in the States for a couple of months now, and unfortunately, for some reason, like a lot of films in Australia, we do get the shit end of the stick and get it released later, which is none other than Blue Beetle, which is obviously the latest DC installment, directed by Angel Manuel Soto, which obviously it focuses on our character Hami, who I guess gets chosen as a symbiotic host to the Beetle. The Blue Beetle, as simple as that. It's probably fair to say that we aren't necessarily familiar with the comics or the origin info.
Yeah, I'm definitely not with Blue Beetle.
So bear that in mind. There might be a little bit of, we might comment on certain things, but there might be a little bit of ignorance just because we're very familiar with superheroes and DC and Marvel, but that's probably one character that we're
I'm a
little bit more unfamiliar and foreign to. But look, without further ado, what overall were your thoughts on the film? Mind you that we got it obviously quite late.
I had a great time on this film. That's not to say it was a great movie. I had a great time. For me, this movie was like, if you want to make a superhero movie for kids, I felt like this is what it is. There was there's no blood or direct impact of anything, or like, I don't know. There was like the violence and action was all there, but to like the point where it felt like it was sensitized. What's the word I'm looking for?
Desensitized?
No. Oh yeah. I don't know. Anyway,
no, I don't know.
They didn't like show the violence. They just showed like the
censored,
cool action.
Is that what you mean?
Censored. That's it. It was definitely, it felt like censored, but that's not to draw away from the film. Just more that it felt like this film was really directed at kids. If it was like a superhero
I'd probably more
movie.
say family rather than kids.
Yeah, sorry. It's hard to tell.
It's probably the best way to put it, because
family orientated.
It's a film that everyone can enjoy.
Yeah. And there's a lot like around it that you would find in a lot of topics and themes that you would find in a lot of family-based movies, which is, talk about like identity and belonging, talking about like family and love and overcoming challenges, and despite everything, there's like so much internal and external growth that you can go through, which are quite prominent, I think, in a lot of family-based movies. And I guess in a lot of those movies, the challenges don't always feel like they're so big, so they can feel like they can be overcome. And I think this movie does that, where it doesn't make everything feel like it's big, but it's not like impossible to overcome. And this movie does explore a lot of that. So for me, if I was to like throw out straight away for the audience for this film, it's got to be, family.
It's kind of everyone, really. Like, I can probably recommend it to 90% of people and they'll have a good time.
Yeah, it's just, it's someone you could take something to. And as I said, even though there's all that action and fighting and things like that, there is actually no genuine like gruesome violence or anything like that, like you do see in a lot of other superhero movies, especially DC. They don't mind to hide away from a fair bit of that. But this, it was quite an enjoyable movie overall. The acting was great, and I thought everything complemented the film perfectly. All the characters fit that same vibe for the audience, which was, kind of fun, kind of free-flowing, kind of someone that's very relatable. I think a lot of these characters are relatable, even if you can't direct to them. As a family, you definitely could. Each person could fit into like a certain character. So props to that. And I actually enjoyed a lot of the score in this. Obviously there is some use of like some famous songs, but some of the original score actually quite complemented a lot of these scenes or action scenes or parts where they're going through specific emotional turmoil. It was complemented quite well, and the audio design was pretty good. I felt like some of the scenes were shot a little funny, but most of them were pretty good, and I did like the way it was directed. But yeah, look, I had a great time. I actually don't know where to go from here other than I think it's a movie worth watching for a good time. You could take the whole family to it, and I feel like everyone will grab something out of it and enjoy it. And that's kind of where I think the end of my words are. I'm kind of a bit stumped. I'll throw it over to you for now.
I guess I've probably got a little bit more, I guess, backstories to certain things as to why certain things were away. And I guess I will touch it. The funny thing is, obviously, you said this film is like, well, everyone can enjoy it and it is family. And I think by no means do I think it's the best superhero film I've ever seen or the best superhero film of the year. I just think it's a decent film I had a good time with.
Yeah.
I think there's a few things I think they could have worked on, but I feel like it was exterior things that did affect that, which I'll get into later in sort of my review. But to touch on everything in front of the camera first, I thought, as you said, the acting was really good across the board. I thought there was a few standouts in George Lopez as Rudy, and Cholo Mariduena as Jaime, like, who's the main actor in the film. I thought he really had a lot of like star power, which I don't know if you've watched this, but he's in Cobra Kai as well, the Netflix series.
Okay, yep.
Which I really enjoy actually.
Haven't seen.
I thought he had, for I guess his first big budget, lead role. He did a really good job and he held the film on his own, which I got to give him props. And I thought everyone was across the board really good. I thought the city itself of Palmyra City, I thought was brought to life in a really interesting way, kind of as if it was its own character in the film, which I love when films do that, is it gives a little bit more life. It feels a bit more grounded. It feels a bit more realistic, especially when you're dealing with superhero films where it can just kind of be a globe-trotting film and you hear. To be kind of set in the one city and it be a little bit grounded and be realistic while also in a futuristic sense. I thought they did a great job in that setting as well. The way the action scenes were shot were also, in my opinion, I really enjoyed the way they were shot. They were very, they weren't sort of heavily cut. They were kind of almost just sort of made to feel very realistic in a sense.
Very fluid.
Which I got to give props to Angel Manuel Soto, who directed the film. I don't think he's directed anything of note previously, so I got to give him props to manage and hold a DC film on his own in terms of directing. It's not a Nolan or a Spielberg type, but it's just a solid. It's a solid sort of directed film in that way, and he did a great job there. But in terms of everything else, not so much Kongs. I thought CGI across the board was pretty decent, but at times it did look a bit funny. Now, I kind of, not necessarily allowing this film to be this way, but I know originally this film was actually set for a HBO Max direct release.
Gotcha.
And it tested quite well with audiences, and then they planned to essentially release it theatrically. So I don't know if it, like, budget-wise, it's obviously not going to have the budget that you've seen with, the Suicide Squad or Batman v Superman, even The Flash. Like, it's not got that level. So I'm not going to necessarily give it some slack, but I can imagine there probably would have been maybe more budget aligned and allocated at a later date, and it probably potentially might have played with that factor. I must admit, it's the reason why this film does work is it just all comes down to family.
Yeah.
And it's why, touching on plot wise, without getting into spoilers, you did say it's a film that most people can enjoy and that families would really get around. Regardless of the fact that it's a superhero film, it comes down to one simple thing, and it's similar to Guardians. Guardians came down to family and loved ones and the connection you have there. This film kind of is similar in that sense. I think, funnily enough, I do think it's a family film first, and a film that comes to the fact that, it has a lot of deeper thematical kind of discovery and sort of exploration there in terms of, like, you might have all the money in the world, but if you don't have the people you love and the family, like, it's nothing. And it goes into a lot of deeper meaning there. And I think that's why people can empathize with it. And that's one thing that a lot of superhero films might not do well, is the allowing people to empathize with the characters and with the story, because it can be very unrealistic and
it's hard to be relatable.
Sense. Whereas I thought this film did really well there. And I do kind of feel bad for it in the sense that I don't know if it's done very well financially. I do think, especially for us, we've seen it opening night. And usually, even though like a Thursday in Australia when films come out, they're not going to be packed as a Friday or a Saturday, but for an opening night of a film, we probably had about 10 people in a cinema of 500 seats. 500 seats, which I do hope this film has the legs and does well, but it's just kind of in Australia, especially getting it 2 months later than everyone else, people might be disinterested, and it's probably going to VOD, like video on demand, soon in America as well, which means, unfortunately, there are people out there who will torrent it and not go to the cinema because of that and things like that. And that's one thing that's got to go. But I do think it's got a case similar to The Flash, because The Flash did kind of bomb, where I think DC have kind of almost put it in a basket case, shot themselves in the foot, because even the messaging behind James Gunn, which I really like James Gunn, I think he's going to do a great job going forward with DC. I think what's hard is he's basically announced that this is the first character in the DCU, in James Gunn's DCU, but then he's straight up said that Superman Legacy is going to be the first film of DCU. So he's kind of said that before the films come out and almost put it in a bed, even though like it is a good film. And like I had a good time with Flash. I do think this is a better film overall than Flash.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's just kind of one of those things where I feel like it's a bit of a limbo period. And for the DC fans out there who are really into it, who probably aren't happy with it anyway, because I'm sure they'll hashtag, Zack Snyder, like they want probably that vision. But it's just, I think they haven't done themselves any favor. And I think that's kind of almost had a negative effect on how it's performed and viewed, because it does kind of, watching the film, I enjoyed it, but it does kind of have a feeling that they might see it as a nothing film, like a filler until the next one comes out. So it's just a bit of an odd situation that I find it in, and I do feel sorry for the cast and the crew that put so much time and effort into it, because I'm sure it'd feel sort of demotivating in a sense.
I'd like to see him as a recurring character.
I would like to see him again. I thought he did a great job.
A lot of love in him.
I really like the character, and I like it's not so, it doesn't do anything new for the genre of superhero films. No. It is formulaic in a sense, but I think it came down to the fact that there were really likable characters, great performances across the board, and it didn't reinvent the wheel in terms of the directing side of things, but it was just an enjoyable time to have at the cinema, and I don't think it's not gonna make any enemies.
Nah, not at all.
I just kind of feel bad for it, because I do feel like it's a bit of in a bit of a limbo kind of period, and I think that's kind of self-inflicted by DC. But I hope that we get to see Cholo again in the helm of Blue Beetle and potentially the cast here, because I really liked everyone at play. And if you are in Australia, I beg you to go see it. Well, not so much beg you, but I urge you to go see it if you like superhero films and you like something with a bit of heart and a bit of emotion. It's probably up your alley. But other than that, I'm sure if you're living anywhere else in the world, which is very likely based on the percentage of Australian population to the rest of the world, you've probably already seen it. So if you have, comment below. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you think we're wrong or if we're right. But funnily enough, film opinions are subjective. So other than that, we'll subscribe, comment below, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, guys.